Hello, everyone. I'm Savita Namaduri, and on behalf of Women in Data, I welcome one and all for this great session today. I have worked with Sandy and Heidi in the past, and they have been great partners on the recruitment front. So I hope to get more insights on the current job market and hope you will benefit from their insights as much as I do. So a little bit of background about Women in Data, who we are, what our mission is, and so on. Next slide, please. So our mission, Women in Data, is a nonprofit organization, and basically our mission is to increase diversity in data-related careers. We provide awareness, education, and advancement to women in the tech industry, and specifically anything that has to do with analytics, data science, machine learning, and artificial intelligence areas, which are very hot nowadays. So who are our members? We cater to a broad spectrum of professionals and entering professionals. Some of them are newbies who are new to the data career and are looking for guidance. These typically include college grads, people in college currently who are looking for internship opportunities or trying to do some projects with real-time companies for their classwork or what have you. And then in the middle of the spectrum, we have a transitioner who probably has a few years of experience doing IT or some other related area and wants to transition into data career and essentially wants to expand their toolbox and make them more marketable, or even, if their interests change, this is a good place to get some input about what the careers are and how to transition that. And then we have the data enthusiast who's already working in a data-oriented career and aims to stay relevant and become a leader in this arena. So this is a great networking opportunity. I have benefited from the camaraderie of this group a lot and hope to be available for other people too if we want to network and learn from each other. So what is the size of our community? We are one community, but we have 10,500 plus members, 26 chapters, and we host about more than 100 events. And each city, at an international level too, we have several chapters, and we welcome you all for the Dallas chapter today. So this is the Dallas team behind this webinar that makes it happen. At the top, we have Vivian, who's our chapter lead, and supporting her as chapter managers are Saujanya and Elizabeth. And then you have a host of other professionals like myself who have different roles in this leadership team. And my role is to engage with speakers and also do college outreach. I have taught as an adjunct at UNT for some time, so I have connections with UTD and UTA and so on, so that's where my role fits in. But we have great community coordinators like Deanna Sanchez, who is a Alteryx expert, and we have Jyoti, Tana, Natalia, and we have some new members as well as like Erin, Sujita, and Girija. If you would like to stay in touch with us, we are on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Please connect with us, and we do have regular meetups, and as everything else in the world right now, we are virtual, thriving virtually as well. Thank you so much for joining us today, and I hand it over to Mary to take it further.
Thank you so much, and thank you again for joining us. I'm Mary Vandenplas. I'm the Director of Operations and Research here at Burtch Works. Today, two of our senior quantitative recruiters, Sandy Marmitt and Heidi Kalish, will be sharing their insights on data science and analytics job searches in 2020. So as a brief introduction to our speakers today, Sandy Marmitt is a Burtch Works partner and one of our executive recruiters. She came to us from the world of human resources and has been recruiting in the quantitative marketing space for over 13 years. Sandy's area of expertise span from direct marketing to online marketing and web analytics to analytics management and predictive analytics. Heidi Kalish has over 20 years of experience recruiting analytics professionals, and she specializes in financial services roles, including credit risk, fraud analytics, and more. Both Sandy and Heidi have been actively involved in the analytics community, participating in groups like the American Statistical Association and Informs for years, and contributing their career insights to the Burtch Works blog and webinars. And for those of you who aren't as familiar with Burtch Works, we're an executive recruiting firm specializing in quantitative fields like analytics, data science, and marketing research. We're the leading resource for hiring market insights, including our comprehensive salary reports. In the past several years, Burtch Works has been repeatedly mentioned in the popular press regarding analytics talent trends, including publications such as the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, CNBC, Information Week, Chicago Tribune, and the Economist. This year, Burtch Works was once again recognized by Forbes as one of America's best recruiting firms. And now, Sandy and Heidi, over to you.
Thanks, Mary. Welcome, everyone. We hope you enjoy our presentation as well as gain some tips and insights. So today, we will be covering a wide variety of topics. These will include what do companies look for, interview preparation, LinkedIn profile and resume tips, interview tips such as pre-interview prep along with video and Skype hints, which are so important right now, questions you may be asked or ones you should ask. We will also provide some key takeaways and the all-time favorite, a Q&A at the end. So what do companies look for in a candidate? How do you make yourself the #1 candidate in the applicant pool? Before we get into the technical skills, here are the soft skills we hear the most about from the clients we work with. There are 3 areas that consistently come up when we speak with our clients about what they're looking for in a candidate. The first one is business acumen. Solving interesting data problems is one thing, but knowing what problems have real business value is another thing entirely. Business acumen is the ability to prioritize and solve problems according to the needs of the business. Intellectual curiosity is another soft skill that's important. Companies want to see someone who's interested in solving the difficult problems and approaching data in innovative ways. I can't tell you how many times I've heard, we want someone with fire in their belly to solve business problems. Communication skills, another important area. You could solve the most difficult problem a business has ever faced, but before your solution adds any value to the business, you need to explain it properly. So communicating your findings is a very important skill in analytics, very important. We have seen many clients include a presentation as part of the interview process to assess how well candidates can communicate and present. So during the presentation, the interviewer will be looking to see how comfortable you are presenting to a group. So this comes naturally for some, others it's more of a learned skill, and I'm learning every day. Okay, so let's talk about how to prepare for your job search. Here are some tips for your ever-important LinkedIn profile that is so broadly used in the job search these days. You can look at the points listed on the slide to see if your profile incorporates these components. Now, the correct email address seems like a minor thing, but it's very important. This is how others in your network reach out to you and communicate with you, especially recruiters like us. Okay, so here are some resume best practices. Once again, contact information is very important for proper communication for interviews or important emails, like when a client or a future employer wants to offer you a job, they need your email address. In terms of appearance, showing your work experience in chronological order is understood as a best practice. It's just easier to read through your resume. Also, make sure you're using consistent fonts and font sizes for your headings, your bullets, and other sections. Major red flags if fonts are looking crazy when you look at a resume. Oh, and spelling. Make sure to triple check. Remember, it's company's first impression of you.
Yeah, and Sandy, I'd like to add that I always recommend having someone else also read through your resume. Sometimes fresh eyes will catch something that you may have missed.
That is so true. Very true. Okay. Lastly, including a list of technical skills can be a great way to highlight tools that you've used. It's always good for that to be brought out on your resume. If you are early in your career, academic or internship projects are impactful ways of showing your experience and adding more flavor to your resume. I also believe if you're going to add personal quantitative projects, it's best to have them geared toward the role you are applying to. That makes for more of a conversational piece. Okay, so now Heidi will talk about the very important next step in the job search, the interview process.
Thank you, Sandy. That was all great. Okay, let's take a look at interview preparation. First, companies love candidates who love them. Show your interest in the firm by doing your due diligence. This should be more than just looking at their website. You really want to research them in the news. What kind of headlines have they been making? What are their strategies, goals, things like that. And then I also recommend that you look up your interviewers on LinkedIn. What are their backgrounds? Can you find any similarities or common interests? Ask questions that demonstrate you've been paying attention to their personal stories. And then obviously make sure you know the job description and requirements inside and out. What tools are required? What's your day-to-day? And use your interview time to get any unanswered questions about the role answered. Be prepared to talk about anything that you've done in your career so far that is particularly relevant to the job. Okay, next, let's talk about video interview tips. More and more these days, we see companies doing a Skype or video interview before bringing candidates on site. And of course, with COVID, video interviews are often replacing on-site interviews altogether. So here are some general tips. First, make sure you have a professional username. Test your equipment and location ahead of time. Do not wait until the interview to log on for the first time. Treat this as you would a regular in-person interview and dress professionally. And practice. This is super important. Practice ahead of time and focus on speaking clearly and slowly so you're ready come the interview. And afterwards, send personalized emails to the people that you met with, but don't send everyone the same exact email.
Oh, yes, Heidi, I want to jump in on this one. In regards to thank you notes, it's almost an expected practice now. It's mostly expected after an on-site, not a phone screen, but I've heard from clients after a candidate interviews, we never got a thank you note, which, before that wasn't a big deal, but now it seems to be part of the process. So just thought I'd add that in.
Absolutely, I agree 100%. It's really important. Basically all normal in-person interview etiquette applies to a video interview. And for those interested, we do have a blog entry on our website that's dedicated specifically to video interview etiquette. So there's a lot more information there as well. All right, now let's move on to questions you may be asked in an interview. You will likely be asked behavioral questions to assess things like your work ethic, how you work, cultural fit, and problem-solving capabilities. Employers will want to find out what kind of worker you will be in their organization. I would also expect questions around cultural fit, not only in terms of how you work on a team, but in terms of the kind of atmosphere the company is trying to maintain, and how you would fit into that team. For the most part, however, almost every answer that you give to every question will contribute to an interviewer's perception of your cultural fit. And lastly, you'll want to display that you are able to solve complex business problems and show that you can contribute valuable insight. All right, now here are some examples of questions you might see. Give me an example of how you handled a challenge. Have you ever made a mistake? And if so, how did you handle that? How do you set goals and achieve them? And do you prefer working individually or as part of a team? And tell me why. Okay, next, let's talk a little bit about industry or position-specific questions, sometimes referred to as technical questions. Questions focused on the industry the company that you're applying for is in, and questions about your current and past positions will help interviewers evaluate your appropriateness for the role. These questions will focus on your past work experience and then the responsibilities that you had in each position, as well as the tools and the software that you've used. And again, your ability to solve complex problems. And for those candidates that are coming right out of school, be prepared to speak about a relevant project that you've done or any internship experience that you might have. All right, so here's some examples of questions that you may hear. Tell me about your favorite statistical tool. Tell me about tools you have used for analysis. What statistical methodologies have you used to solve business problems? And which tools have you used for visualization?
Oh, Heidi, one more thing.
Yes.
Okay. If you don't know, I just saw this when you talked about the tools. If you don't know a particular tool, it's better to be honest about that. Don't fib and say you know it, because that could cause many problems down the road.
Oh, 100%.
Or you could say something like, I'm a quick learner, but obviously if that's not true, that could cause problems down the road too.
Don't say that.
That's right.
Absolutely, I agree. No, that's very true. Don't pretend to know something that you don't.
Pretend.
Actually know about. Yeah. Excellent. Okay, so let's move on to questions that you should ask in an interview. So it's important that you do ask questions during your interview, both to show your genuine interest in the role and also to understand the scope of work from someone who is doing the work, or at least is close to it. Ask about the structure and role. What does the team look like? Who does the role report to? Does anyone report into you? Where does the team sit within the organization? You should also ask about the position and your day-to-day tasks. What types of tools and methodologies will you be using? The type of data and the data sources. What state is the data in? Is it structured or unstructured? And also, what is the breakdown of your day? How much time are you spending on analysis versus cleaning the data versus project management, things like that. All right, so now let's touch on some salary negotiation tips. First, you want to be transparent and craft a compelling story. I'm a firm believer that it's beneficial to be open and honest about what you're targeting for compensation and why. You also want to make sure that you're evaluating the entire opportunity. It's not just about the money. Consider the whole package. And also, I think even more importantly, is look at the role and how it fits into your career plan. Is it going to get you where you want to go? And then next, negotiate tactfully.
Okay, I'm jumping in again. This is so important. You don't want your actions during negotiations to trail you, because the hiring process is really the beginning of your relationship with the employer. And if negotiations were rocky, it's just not a great start.
That's really true. That's an excellent point. Yeah, it can follow you for sure. And then the last point that I want to touch on is don't accept an offer unless it's your final decision. It never looks good to accept and then renege on an offer. All right, and now I am going to hand it back to Sandy so she can share some information on the impact of COVID-19.
Oh, yes. Okay. Well, everyone knows COVID has had a huge impact on the job market as well as almost everything else. So in March, when the pandemic was first declared, we wanted to understand how it impacted the analytics community. We teamed up with IIA, International Institute for Analytics, which is a research and advisory firm. Together, we did a pulse survey utilizing our tens of thousands of data scientists and analytic contacts in 5 waves from the end of March. So let's look into the insights that came out of those survey responses. No surprise, work from home has been one of the top changes. Here are some of the comments you can read over we received from the survey. There certainly has not been a large rush of people going back to their offices. And recently, we explored this topic further, which we got over 400 responses. Now, these results were interesting. It seems like roughly 25% will be back in the office before the end of the year. But it also seems like a pretty high percentage don't know when they will be expected back to the office. And another 4% will now be permanently working from home. And I bet that number will increase.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure most of us have probably heard that Twitter announced that their employees can work from home indefinitely. I believe both Facebook and Google have stated that their employees will be remote at least until next summer. So it'll be really interesting to see how this all changes the work from home landscape.
Right, so true. So what will be the longer term impacts of work from home? I believe we will see a wider talent pool. Clients will have greater options as more candidates are leaving or looking. Also, candidates will have more employment choices because more and more roles will be going remote. Will work from home reduce salaries? Maybe. Mark Zuckerberg said that Facebook employees will have salary adjustments if they choose to live away from headquarters in Silicon Valley. So there go those high salaries, I guess. Onboarding challenges is another impacted area. For more seasoned candidates, this is not as tough, but for the early career people, it could be more of a challenge to get to know their colleagues. There's just so much bonding you can do on a Zoom with everybody. That's a tough thing to break into. So in the beginning of all this and working from home, we all seemed surprised at how productive everyone was. But questions are starting to come out if this can continue. Example being childcare. This is a big issue. With remote learning likely to be the norm, it's really a tough balancing act. And Heidi, any thoughts on that?
Yes, I can speak to the balancing act since I'm currently working from home and my kids are all e-learning as we speak. So Sandy, I'm pretty sure you've been on a call or two with me
Oh my
where
gosh.
I've had to ask you to hold so I could yell to one of the kids to have a snack and go to the bathroom because they've got to Zoom in 10 minutes. So
Yes.
yeah,
Actually, yes, that's so funny because
yeah.
we were actually practicing our slides and you were reading through some things and then I heard this crinkling and then you
Yeah.
said, "Oh, I just opened M&Ms for one of my
Well,
children." While
but
you're
they're
doing the
smart.
slides, you just
Yeah, they
yes,
come to me when they know
yes,
they can get anything that they
I
want
know.
because I'm just trying to
That's
get them out
true.
of the office.
You couldn't argue with them.
Yeah.
I
So,
think my favorite thing that happened, you'll probably kill me for this.
oh
We
no.
were on a staff meeting, a video,
Yeah.
and your youngest, Heidi has 4 kids. Her
Yeah, that's a
youngest
lot of them.
climbed behind her and put his legs up onto her shoulders. So you saw his little feet
Oh my gosh,
that
yes.
looked like Heidi had these little ears coming out. But
Her
Heidi
big ears.
continued, didn't miss a beat, talking about business. It didn't affect her. I was just trying not to laugh. So it was very funny.
Well, we all
All
adjust.
right. I know. Well, you're a master.
Well, thanks.
All right. So I think we wanted to also find out how COVID has impacted analytic teams, staffing, and hiring. It's really interesting. About 50% either saw no impact or, in fact, have been continuing in the hiring process. Many firms used furloughs and salary cuts in order to avoid layoffs. I have not seen furloughs in past recessions. People were just simply laid off. But this could be because this pandemic presented an unusual set of problems with a tough to predict recovery. So companies wanted to try to hang on to their people. Okay. This shows how impacts have been over the size of companies. Pretty straightforward. It basically shows that, no surprise, large companies have been less impacted than the small companies and startups. A number of companies have also stated they won't do layoffs before the end of this year. I think consulting firms like BCG, Bain, as well as many, but not all of the large banks. Some are also just on the right side of the crisis, like maybe they sell cleaning products or toilet paper or the ever important Zoom platform. Okay. So here we asked about job stability, both personally and for your company. In both cases, people were feeling either very positive or somewhat positive about their stability. I liked that many people are feeling positive about their personal stability. Lots of self-confident people in analytics, as they should be, because analytics is more important now than ever. Okay, so now Heidi is going to look at what the future will look like. Oh, Heidi, please tell us.
Yes, let me get out my magic ball. So what's the future going to look like? Everybody's asking, everybody wants to know. And of course, a lot is uncertain. But I can tell you with some, confidence that it probably won't look like this picture anytime soon. All right, and here's everyone's favorite new phrase again, the new normal. How has corporate recruiting changed in this new normal? We noticed in May that there was an uptick in companies starting to hire again. One silver lining is setting up interview schedules is easier now, since not as many people are taking vacations, and also candidates are either unemployed or full-time working from home. And it's also easier when you don't have to fly anyone in to interview. There's also the plus that start dates are sooner, because relocation, if there is any relocation involved, is put off until the company is closer to a solid in-person schedule. Another thing that we've seen is more technical assessments early in the interview process to weed out candidates. And honestly, I've been telling my clients that this is a good time to hire. There's candidates available now that weren't available 6 months ago. And there's also competition for those candidates. So companies are forced to move quickly because strong candidates are still getting multiple offers. I definitely think that companies are going to continue with virtual hiring even long after we're through this crisis. All right, so we just showered you with quite a bit of information on happenings in the analytics marketplace. It's a lot. So how can you keep up? All right, we mentioned keeping up with trends earlier. Analytics and data science tools will continue to evolve, so it's important to stay aware of new developments in your area. Online courses or certifications are great ways to learn new skills or sharpen existing skills. Coursera, Udacity, those are all good resources for online learning. And then several universities offer online certificates as well. And Kaggle competitions are another good resource. If you haven't tried out Kaggle yet, the website offers analytics and data science professionals the opportunity to compete in company-sponsored competitions. But you can also download data sets to practice and refine your skills using real-world data. And seek out analytics literature. Look for books or blogs, magazines, things that are tailored specifically to analytics and data science professionals. And of course, contact recruiters to stay aware of job market trends. And no, we're not just saying that because we're recruiters, but talking to recruiters can give you an overall sense for the job market or hiring trends that top-line job statistics might not necessarily capture. And recruiters can also give you a sense for what data science and analytics tools and skills are most in demand. And if you're interested, we have a variety of career resources for quantitative professionals that are all free for you to access, both from our website or our LinkedIn page. So feel free to check those out. And now let's move on to networking. All right, so as we mentioned before, it's very important to keep your LinkedIn profile and resume updated. This should almost go without saying, but even if you aren't currently looking, you always want your profile to be professional and to represent you in the best light. Likewise, even if you're not job searching, you should keep your resume up to date. It's so much easier to articulate your impact on a project or the work that you've done when it's fresh in your mind. And if you wait too long, you might find it difficult to summarize your data projects in resume format. And then when you do finally decide to start looking, it will expedite that process since your resume should hopefully just need a few tweaks rather than a complete overhaul. Another piece of advice is to practice talking points about your background and interests. Networking can be nerve-wracking, and practicing talking about your background and yourself can help you stay focused on the points that you want to get across. Obviously, you don't want to sound like a robot, but even simply reading through your resume a few times and thinking about questions that you'd like to ask other people can be really beneficial. It's also important to join associations or professional organizations. There's a women in data group that I've heard good things about, wink, wink. But seriously, joining and attending meetups and conferences or networking events can introduce you to other professionals in your field, and many offer membership benefits like career resources. If you haven't already, check out your local chapter of the American Statistical Association, the ASA, or Informs is another good one. That's the Institute for Operations Research in the Management Sciences. And then you can also join analytics and data science LinkedIn groups. This can be a really good way to connect with people who aren't local and to stay informed of trending topics and new developments in analytics and data science. And then look to see if your school has any relevant alumni associations that you can join. And then lastly, attend conferences if possible. Keep an eye on conferences and meetups to see if there are any that might be feasible for you to attend. Obviously, right now, there's no in-person conferences or meetups, but most have figured out a way to meet virtually, like you guys do. Okay, and finally, I want to highlight the key things to remember as you navigate a job search in analytics. First, understand what the companies want and build your resume, highlight those in-demand skills, tools, and any internships or academic projects that are relevant. And then develop a thorough understanding of the role and company that you're applying to. That helps really show a genuine interest in them, which is always important. And then do your research before interviews. Again, super important and shows that you are serious about the opportunity and interested. And be prepared for technical assessments. We've been seeing more and more of those. And lastly, don't let your skills go stale. There's so many great ways to stay up to date on what's trending and to make sure that you are keeping your skills in analytics fresh. All right, well, Mary, I am going to throw it back to you.
Thank you so much to Sandy and Katie for digging into that information. And if you're looking for more data and analysis, come visit us at burtchworks.com. For more hiring market insights, check out our blog where you can find flash surveys on SAS, R, and Python preferences, what motivates analytics professionals to change jobs, as well as advice on resumes, interviews, evaluating job offers, and much more. And I highly recommend downloading our full salary study, which we just published last month, where we break down salaries by quartiles, look at salary means as well as medians, examine salaries by demographic factors like gender and region, and much more. It's really great stuff in there. And to stay up to date on our latest research, you can find us on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook. In our YouTube channel, found at youtube.com/BurtchWorks, you can find recordings of our other presentations, including SAS, R, Python, data analysis, 2020 predictions, haha, and our immensely popular career planning webinar with tons of job search tips. If you want to hear more of Heidi's dulcet tones, she also joined us on our salary study webinar last month. So she did a great job presenting that with our managing director, Linda. And now it looks like we have some time for questions. So I know we've gotten some through the chat and we got some ahead of the presentation from you all as well. So we will get to as many as we can. Feel free to continue sending them. But for now, let's jump right in. All right, any advice for switching into a data science role from another technical background? Heidi, I know you've talked about this a lot.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing that you'll need to do, obviously, is learn the different data science tools and methodologies that are needed for a role in data science. You know, as I mentioned earlier, there's some really great online courses that you can take. And then if you're looking for something a bit more intensive, there's some great boot camps too. And then I think Kaggle is a great resource. I think it's a chance to play around with real world data and to really sharpen those skills, those technical skills using real data. I think the biggest thing that when you're transitioning into data science from, you know, maybe a role that's not quite as technical or not a data science position, it's important to be flexible. So, you know, even if you have several years of work experience, if it's not relevant to a data science role, you likely will be taking a step back in terms of level. But then, once you get your foot in the door, you can prove yourself, and I'm sure move up quite quickly. So
I have some thoughts on this. There's always thoughts. When you're talking to a recruiter, you're going to get a lot of thoughts.
A lot of thoughts.
Okay, so many companies want people to hit the ground running when they hire them. They have an urgent need, and this person needs to just start right away, and they don't always build in that ramp up period for somebody. But if there is a position that would allow for you to make this transition, I would jump on that, because they don't come along as often. And I think it's a great way to get in. So to Heidi's point about flexibility, you need to be a little flexible, possibly on salary, to give up that a little bit to be able to transition into data science.
Absolutely. Yep.
All right, thank you. Our next question is, in your opinion, what technology should one aim to master for a career in data science?
Python. Heidi's a singer on her time off. Okay, I'll take this one. Well,
you don't have to
done,
sing your answer. You can just answer
regular. I won't sing. Later, maybe the next one. We've done some surveys on tool preferences from our network over the years, and it's been really interesting to see the transition from like SAS to R. That went pretty slowly, but the R to Python came in quick and has really stuck. And I feel like every time I speak with a client about what tools they're looking for, Python is always very important. In fact, lately I've been hearing like we're not using SAS anymore. We need somebody that really is proficient in Python. So in terms of data science, Python seems to be the go-to.
Agreed.
All right. Next question is touching on kind of those soft skills you mentioned in the presentation. Do you have any specific communication skills or examples of what you mean by that to practice when you're getting ready for an interview?
Well, I think maybe, looking back on either your past work experience, or maybe if you're coming out of school, a project that you've done, and not just being able to say, okay, I did this type of analysis, or I used this tool, but why and what was the outcome? What did it show you? What, business impacts did it have? So kind of seeing that bigger picture of what, the results from your analytics is, and how that's going to impact the business. So yeah, I would say going back and maybe practicing, looking at the bigger picture from the work that you've done in the past, either in your job or in school projects.
Right. And interviewers love when somebody's very excited about the job. If they see this excitement and that they're being able to give you the job of your dreams, it makes them very excited about bringing you on. And you don't want somebody that you feel is just not that interested in what you do. So that excitement showing through with the analytics you work for, I think goes a long way.
All right, and then I have a very recruiting specific question for the two of you. How do I approach recruiters on LinkedIn and make a good first impression so that they'll respond to my message? Maybe why don't you start out on this one?
Okay, well, this is an interesting one. Well, your picture is real important. No, I'm just kidding. I think that it's obviously, we are specialized recruiters, so we're going to be looking for the work that you've done that are specific to what our clients are looking for. So obviously we're not generalists. So, if you're in PR or, you're making television commercials, that's great, but not something that we look for. So I just have to say that we are going to be looking for those analytic skills that we recruit for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think too, the way we kind of, and this is very specific to Burtch Works, but the way that we break things up here are, we all pretty much focus on the quantitative backgrounds, but we break things up by industry and level. So somebody may reach out to me, but I focus on quantitative folks within financial services. So then I would, look at that background and make sure I pass that along to the appropriate recruiter here. And I know, myself and I believe all the other recruiters at Burtch Works will typically at least, even if we don't see a fit for you right now, we'll at least follow up and, keep your information in our database and kind of get some additional information on, are you open to relocation? What are you targeting for compensation? Try to get at least that information into our system. So then as new roles come in and we kind of look to our database, we can reach out to you to see if, something new that comes in might interest you or be a fit.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that we all wish that we could place every single one of you, we promise.
Yes.
Right.
And we really do, I have to say, sorry to butt in again, we do like to build those long-term relationships. So even if we aren't able to help you right now, like I said, we keep all that information. We have a pretty extensive database, and we try to keep in touch with the folks in our database. So then, like I said, as new things come in down the road, hopefully at that point, it might be a fit, or we can help you at some point down the road in your career.
Yes,
Right.
absolutely. Another kind of recruiting focused question, kind of the next step here. If I'm working with a recruiter, how can I make the process go more smoothly?
Oh, I love that question. That's a great question. Okay, so number one, be honest, because we can't help you unless we know the whole situation and what's going on. And so honesty, when I work with somebody that's honest about, where they want to live or what their situation is or what their other interviews are, don't make me guess kind of where the opportunity I'm talking to you about stands in relation to your other opportunities. The more transparent you are about all the parts of the process, the easier it is to move forward and work through some of the struggles or some of the challenges. So honesty, transparency, compensation, that's always a really tricky thing. And I hate to get to that conversation at the end of the process. I rather get to that in the beginning of the process in terms of what you need so that we can navigate what positions make most sense to you. Love the question.
Great. Sandy, you actually provided a perfect transition to our next question, which is about compensation. Should a job seeker disclose the pre-COVID salary or the most recent pay cut due to COVID-19 to a potential employer, or should they disclose both?
I can jump in on this one.
Okay, thank you.
You kind of answered part of it for me. So, yeah, I mean, again, I think transparency for the win. I would share both. I would share your pre-COVID salary and your current salary, as well as what you're targeting for salary. I think especially in this unique COVID world that we're in now, I think people are going to understand if you had a certain salary back in March and then you didn't have that salary in April. Most are going to understand that you want to get at least back to where you were, if not a step above that. So
it's part of the story.
It is, yeah. And I just think being transparent about all that, either, both with your recruiter and with the companies that you're interviewing for. I also think it's a good way to start building that trust with those people. I don't, when it comes to salary, I know there's this big push around don't tell people what you make and you don't have to disclose salary. I mean, I really don't think most companies are out to, you know, get you for the cheapest amount they can. You know, I think especially within the specialized field of analytics and data science that they value the skill set that you're bringing to the table. I've had a client who I submitted a candidate for a role who was a bit more senior, and the candidate said, you know, I'm willing to take a pay cut. It was, you know, he was really trying to stay in a specific location, so he was a bit more flexible. But the client said, no, you know, I don't like offering pay cut, or I don't like giving a pay cut. It's just not a good way to start off a relationship. So, you know, again, I just think being open, being honest about all that information is going to ultimately get you to the best fit. Sorry to ramble.
And also, a lot of these companies spend a lot of time, their HR folks, compensation folks, they know the market. They know what certain people with years of experience or education should make. So if you're a candidate, but they're coming out of, they listen to our salary studies. So if you're a candidate that comes out of the gate, never working before and wants 200,000, then you would be in the bucket of the negotiation problem. It's just not realistic. I mean, obviously, maybe in some situations it is, but for the most part, everybody knows what they're doing. So you need to be reasonable to be a good candidate and move forward.
All right, thank you for that. And you know, as Sandy and Heidi were saying, we'll put in one more plug for our salary study. It's really a great resource if you're trying to figure out what the market rate looks like currently. That's all the time we have for questions today, but thank you for everyone who submitted a question and for all of you for joining us. And thank you to Women in Data for putting this together. And if you'd like to see what roles we have that are a fit for your experience, you can check out our website, or you can send us your resume to info@burtchworks.com to get the process started. Thank you all and have a great rest of your day.